Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Johngy podcast, without which life would be incomplete and have little or no meaning. With me, as always, coming to us from Skokie, Illinois, is the man on the beat from johngysbeat.com, Mr. John Robleski.
Without that middle name game, are you going to fill that void, or what are you going to do?
We don't need to have a gimmick.
It's not a gimmick.
Well, it was an honest quest to figure out what your middle name was. I found out it was Francis.
That's amazing, actually. 50. I mean, and I mean this sincerely. It only took you 58 shows to get that. But I mean, really, in a pure numbers game, that's pretty impressive. You had no clues.
No, I didn't. So, but anyway, I did finally figure it out. So, how are you doing there, buddy?
I'm battling a little bit of a cold, but I'm okay.
Yeah, you had a dry.
It's not COVID. I don't have to wear a mask to talk to you.
No. Well, you should wear.
I should wear a mask. I know.
But
yeah.
Well, I'm very excited today. This is personally for me, this is a big guest to have. Today we have on the show someone I've known since I was about 10 or 11 years old, Dr. Michael J. Dusa. I met him because he was friends with my father, and Mike was probably my first real exposure to bodybuilding when I was a kid, because I think we had gone to see him compete before my father had even had his first competition. And then subsequently down the road, my mother ended up competing as well. And so I just have very fond memories of him as a kid. We'll get into when we talk to him, but I probably haven't spoken with him face to face in maybe 10 years.
Wow.
Maybe a little bit more. I follow him on Facebook, and we've chatted a little back and forth. But so this is this episode is an opportunity to get to catch up and reunite a little bit, and there's a lot to talk about with him. He's a man with many.
He's a Renaissance man.
Yeah. And yeah, he's a lot of fun, and this is something I've been looking forward to. So we're just gonna get right into it because we have a real good conversation with him. So without further ado, please welcome to the show, Dr. Michael J. Dusa. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the podcast, Dr. Michael J. Dusa. Uncle Mike, how are you, sir?
It's always like a holiday.
Yeah.
Welcome, doctor. Nice to meet you.
Good to see you guys, and especially you, Tommy. It's been a long time.
It's been a very long time. So just to give a little background and everything, on how I know you and our history together, I think we were just talking about it. I must have been, 10, 11 when I met you. And
I think, yeah.
One of the things I really liked about you as a kid was that you were into and actively read comic books. And I could be talking about what happened in the latest X-Men or something, and you knew what I was talking about. Mm-hmm. And for a little kid, that is one of the coolest things in the whole world. And to this day, I've always remembered that. And it's always been something in the back of my head where when I grow up, I still want to have that in me. I still want to be able to be true to myself and have that, my interests still, be able to connect with kids and things like that and stuff. It was very cool.
You have, that's called self-awareness.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the number one lacks of a lot of people now, but you had that and have that. So that's a great utility.
Well, thank you. You were also, I think, really my first introduction into bodybuilding, because I think the first show I ever went to was to go see you compete. I remember, I'm pretty sure it was a natural show, and we because I remember they were doing like the tests and stuff ahead of time or something. We had to go down to the city.
Yeah, I
We went
remember.
down. Yeah, I remember we went down to the city or something like that.
Yeah, well,
So to do that.
that was a Clay Quinn production, and that was pretty much the worst event, not just within the realm of bodybuilding, that I ever went devoid of. Listen, if you want people to come and be entertained, um, it's got to be expedient. They don't want to be there that long. I mean,
Yeah,
the prejudging was like, prejudging for 2 hours. It was 6 hours, and
and it's
anybody,
exhausting.
if anybody illegally entered that show on drugs, it took so long to get it done. They were off drugs by the time.
Right. Yeah. It didn't matter.
Sounds
Yeah.
kind of nuts, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I've explained to people over the years that there's a difference between doing natural shows and unregulated shows. I'm like, but even then, it's, they're doing polygraph tests and, and that there's not, out here in Illinois, I think maybe there's there's at least one, there used to be two. But it's just because so many people are juicing and doing stuff that from a promoter standpoint, they're just going to make more money on not doing testing or anything like that. And it's a shame, but it's just the way from a business standpoint.
I'm not a cynic. I'm an optimistic realist. So it's kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
The number one side effect of bodybuilding is lying.
Yes.
It's nothing. Think about this for a moment. We've got alcoholism, illicit drug use, opioids, all that stuff. The stuff coming over the border now, it's a number.
Fentanyl or whatever.
Yeah, and there's
stuff
something
like
else,
that.
really,
Yeah.
really, really bad stuff. But you see, when people in the public spectrum overcome those things, they're heroes. And they just consider that, like, you beat that, that's great. They go out and speak and do tours and all that stuff. But the thing with bodybuilding, and one of the reasons why there's very little studies as far as what these things actually do to us, is because you built yourself into a champion. And this is all athletics, not just bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to get caught and then admit that they were cheating.
Right.
So it's a much different animal when you're talking, well, they're all controlled substances. I don't care what anyone says.
Yeah.
As far as the number one destructive drug on the planet, it's alcohol. That's
sure
undefeated.
Yeah.
And I'm not pro or con anything. This is things that I've come as a physician, an athlete, all this and that, a guy sitting at the computer, that I've learned. But the steroid stuff, it's very hard to get anyone to become forthright. So, and I think these guys do some damage, if at all, because you're better off if you're on the stuff and a young guy wants to know. Like Cal Scalick told me when I was 17, he was Mr. Universe at the time, competing against Frank Zane and all those guys. I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of the top guys throughout in my career, and it's been great and fun and very illuminating. And he sat down with us and he said, listen, and this guy's the best in the world at the time. This is 1980. And he said, listen, I do steroids. And he didn't pull any of this 2 Dianabol a day bullshit where these guys, the winning temperament or mindset of an athlete is to do whatever it takes. They've done studies where they asked a group of athletes, if you were to take a pill and it kill you in a year, but you win the gold medal, a very high percentage of them said, yes, I would do it. So now we're with Cal Scalick, Mr. Universe, and he said, look, I do steroids and I want to be the best in the world. And if I end up getting cancer up the road, so be it. And, then you are equipped as a youngster to make the proper decision, because you actually have the information. Because when you see a guy that's so big that if aliens came from outer space and they were designed to take a human back, they look at this guy and say, oh, that's not human. Go to somebody else. When you look like that, it belies even the most facile of imaginations that this guy can be telling the truth, as far as it's only fresh, it's fresh water and baling hay.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Come on, man.
Yeah, no, I know. There's some people like the people point someone out on wrestling or something, and they'll say, "You think that guy's doing roids?" And I'm like, "What do you think?" Like,
Yeah.
look at the size of that guy. I'm like, "You think he's just got like that because he's eating his egg whites?" And I mean, it's
Yeah, but you also have to be careful, and I know you guys are, but at the same time, it's not only that, because there are guys I know, local people who probably do more than Dorian Yates or Mr. Olympia, because a guy like Lee Priest, for instance, I've done a little work with, and he wears our Fozzy shirts all over, and he is a world level guy. I do believe when he says, only because he speaks of all the bad things about himself. I mean, the
right.
guy is very transparent. Some people are really good. They have really good receptor sensitivity. They just take some and they respond and they get as good as they can get. Whereas if you're a person who maybe has only a certain number of receptors in your areas, muscle areas, or however that, I'm not going to get too intense in the science as far as that goes. And you're not responding like Lee Priest, and you do more and you do 10 times the amount. Well, there's no more receptors to occupy, so this stuff's going to manifest in the liver, or you're just going to piss it out. Or, however, that's when you're going to develop. Some people won't develop problems because you've got people who smoke a carton of Lucky Strikes a day and they live to 90, they die from gangrene. You get people who just breathe in secondary smoke, lung cancer at 40. So who knows? The
Right.
FDA hasn't done us any favors over the years, just scaring the hell out of people. That's media scaring people,
Yeah.
and to keep them under the thumb. But that's not informational, and I'm kind of digressing, so I'll stop.
It's okay. Well, so kind of the next step I want to talk about was your career in chiropractic, because you are very knowledgeable when it comes to the human body. I mean, just
no, let's just go back to bodybuilding, because we're talking about bodybuilding. But I'll just quickly touch the bodybuilding thing.
yeah, please.
This is not a boast, because I am the best mediocre bodybuilder in the world.
That's kind the title.
I think you don't give yourself enough credit. You
gotta sell. You gotta self-efface, because when I was big at one time, where it looked like it closed, when you are acting as a doctor, now chiropractic is a hard sell. Nobody wants to go to the doctor; they have to go to the doctor. So,
right.
if you walk in and you look like you're going to crack them in half because you're so damn big, you're kind of you're going to lose people.
Sure,
so
sure. I get it.
Or just kind of kick that to the side so people aren't intimidated is important to do. But I started training in the 70s when I was 12, 1975, and I can't tell you how unpopular bodybuilding was unless you were there. There was a huge stigma. You didn't tell anybody you lifted weights until it started to look like you lifted weights, and that took 10 years for me because I was very slow. But I competed as a 15-year-old, 1979, when you didn't even have music posed to, and you were at the mercy of people clapping. Wow. And they didn't clap for, it was a long time.
It's a long minute, yeah.
Well, I just knew that is something I wanted to do, and I stuck with it. And I finally won my first I did 60 contests, 6-0. And a lot of those were 3 or 4 shows in a day, because you can go in every class.
Yeah.
For 25 years. And I won the overall in 2, my class in 1. And some trophies and stuff. But for me, like Frank Zane says, Mr. Olympia, he says, when you're younger, well, think about why people would punish themselves with weights, because there's some type of angst in their head. Maybe they had a bad home life. Kids make fun of you.
Sure.
You feel inadequate with the opposite sex. It's terrible stuff, because people can be cruel. Like my hair, Denise knows not to F with my hair.
Yeah.
Because when I was a kid, I used to take a shower at night. I had so many kids in my family, you had to wait your turn. And I would sleep with wet hair, and I'd go to school with my hair all fucked up. It looked like And these kids, my neighbors, they would relentlessly make fun of me. And you know what? Whether it's realistic or not, it sticks with me. And
Sure.
It's a little burning thing that drives me. And I know Tommy, when you go and you have to do that extra rep, because most people, it's a heartless pantomime in the gym. They're just kind of, you've got to attack yourself.
Right.
And how do you do that? You got to attach something to that set. Like Yates was saying, and I've done this, he's doing those last few reps, and if he doesn't finish that rep, his mother will die, or his
right. You create like this scenario in your head where it's
and that's well focused or ferreted anger into a positive outcome. But you had to do all these things, and I did them as long as I could. I think I got a lot smarter. I took all my mistakes and stacked them up like a library. Now I could withdraw, put things together, and be more effective at what I do. And in the past decade, I've been injured many times. I've also had a decade of illness and injury, 28 surgeries. The last time I came back, I was 50, and I wanted to get in shape and go to the Colosseum in Italy and pose among the statues. My wife loves. She went to school in Italy. We're going to go back to Italy, probably
Oh,
live
that's
in
awesome.
Italy. Yeah. So I said, well, I'll tell you what. I was a fat fuck. I went into Powerhouse where I used to work out, and Evan Centopani, one of the top pros in the world, great guy, very smart guy. He's going on to other things. He's not just sticking with bodybuilding his whole life. Third place Arnold Classic several times. Very, very top level guy. Very smart. I went up to him and I said, and he didn't really. He knew who I was, but you know, I'm looking like maybe 230. I hadn't touched weights in a long time. Yeah, oh yeah. Well, I had that thing with my arm and I had all that crap, boring stuff. But I told him what I wanted to do. I go, there's my picture on the wall from past years, and he didn't laugh. He just listens, and he said okay, and we trained together for a year. I asked him at the end before we were going to Italy the next day. I said, Evan, I really have to know, did I do everything that it took? And he said, and he doesn't give compliments very rarely, even if you think you deserve them, and that's a good thing. He said, Mike, I got to tell you, 98% of the people that I work with, they say they're going to do like what you're doing, not Italy, but go in a contest. And you know how hard it is to go on stage naked, go like this, hope people clap.
Sure, yeah. It takes a lot to get up in front of everyone in your skivvies. Yeah.
Yeah, and he said, you know, you did everything you did. It's very important to me to do what you say you're going to do.
Right.
And for me, I say a lot of things, a lot of high level things. It may take me a long time. I may be late on it, and that's not good. But still, I always complete it. So the bodybuilding thing, going back to Zane, he was saying, you know, the average person, you're younger, you want to get back at someone, you want to look attractive, not sex. That's fine. But if you want to do this and be good at it for a lifetime, it's got to go beyond that. And he said, if you're 40, you've been training for 20 years, and the goal is still to get a 300 bench or an 18-inch arm, you kind of missed the boat. You know? So you get a lot more from it. You know, all those things we could talk about, the positive virtues that you need to employ to bring out the best in yourself. I hope I've done that. I think in bodybuilding, I promoted a lot of shows. Mike Katz is a good friend from Pumping Iron. I worked with him here for many years. I promoted, MC, sponsored. I started a scholarship show, brought in some Hollywood stars, gave scholarships to the students. So a lot of good, fun, cool stuff. You know, I don't want to have any regret of not having done things if I make it to older years.
Yeah.
But you know, from bodybuilding, there's a lot of offshoots. So yeah, it led me to some other good things.
Yeah. And to speak to what you were saying about, you know, did you do everything you possibly could? I did my first bodybuilding competition when I was 26, and a lot of people had been on me probably since I was like 18 to start competing. And I, having grown up around it and have gone to so many shows, I saw like the favoritism from the judges to, you know, people who worked out at their gym and things like that. And I'm just like, the variables between each individual up on stage of their time that they can put into it, their budget for the food and supplements that they use, or whatever the case is and stuff. There's so many things in there. It's like, it's hard to, you know, have like a level playing field. So in my mind, I was always like, what's the point? And then I was 25 at the time, and, you know, I was big, but I wasn't like lean. And you know, couple of my friends were telling me, they're like, you know, you really should try competing. And I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? I just want to see if I can do it. I don't care where I place. I just want to see, can I do the training? Can I do the diet and get through the whole thing? Get up on stage, do a posing routine, the whole thing, learn how to pose. I mean, you know, all the stuff that goes behind getting ready for it and everything. And so then I well, of course, went to my father, and I talked to him about helping me with the diet aspect of things, and just training in general and what I should be doing. And my whole thing is that I'm not going to break from this plan for the entire time. And the day I got to the show, I could honestly say to myself, I did everything I possibly could to look as good as I can today on this day. And that was, for me, the biggest triumph. And in any show I ever did after that, that was my whole thing too, was going through the training part of it. Was I don't want to get to the day of the show and think of even one thing that I didn't do that I could have done by choice,
You alluded to no control over who wins or who's pushing what buttons, pulling strings, cheating, whatever you want to call it. You can only control you, and I think a good way to start is to look like you belong up there.
Right.
And then, as a judge, I could tell you at the high levels, I've judged the Mr. America. At that level, you look for what people don't have. A little lack here and there. Everybody's really good, and
right.
Arguably, you could say any of the top 10 guys could win. You could put them in first place, and a person who's not really too cultured in the nuances would say, "Hey, yeah, that's him." At the lower, state level or local or whatever it might be, I start by looking at who has good abs, who dieted hard, because that's really anybody can go push weight.
Abs are the toughest to get. Yeah.
Yeah. And, to segue for a second, you put all your hopes into, there might be some guy in Missouri baling hay. That's his lifting weights, and he doesn't even know. And he looks better than you.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
One day, win and leave, and that's it. Like that. You got to hate the people who, you worked really hard your whole life in this little niche, and maybe you have a little bit, and somebody just comes in and they're more suited to it. They come in, win, beat you, and leave, and never come back. And that is a real kick in the ass too.
Yeah.
But if you keep these things in your head, these little drivers, because think about the gym business. It's the only one. Well, there might be others, but you got to pay to join, and then you got to work.
Right. Yeah.
Wait a minute. I owned a gym along with my clinic, and I swear we had some people. I went to Dr. Dusa, and he's really good, and I'm still fat, so I guess I just can't. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. You must work. I'm just giving you information, and you got to pay, and that's a tough hurdle because it's a matter of values. People want to say things like, "Oh, health, happiness, children, all that." Number one, nobody gives a shit about the children, from what I can see. I mean, hopefully you do. But these are just things that people spit out. Health. Go in the mall today, and listen. My wife is 61. She looks like she's 35. She's like a gymnast almost. She won a couple of contests years ago. She just retired from being assistant attorney general for the state of Connecticut. Very, very high achiever. Wonderful person. Best person I've ever known in my life. Now she gives me the okay because I go over to the mall and I'm going to spy or look at 40 women. I did a little self-study one day, and now. Remember evolution 30 years, 45 years ago when I started training to now, I'm still the basic my body still responds to the same stuff I responded to back then. Because evolution will take maybe 1,000 years for your body to adopt a new type of response. You know what I mean? Now, 30 years ago, people were more svelte. They were a lower body weight. Now, the women are cultivating seemingly intentionally. And I'm speaking as a doctor now. Some people take this as an affront, but they're cultivating these very large asses and letting their stomach hang out with these belly shirts. None of this is illegal, nor is my opinion giving it, because now we hear that you're going to. I can't get canceled because I work for myself. And that's kind of freeing. But listen, I'm going to say this much. If you want to look at your health indices, if you think 30 points higher in blood pressure, the acceptable level of blood cholesterol used to be 199, now it's 249. Well, how did that happen?
Right.
Physiology didn't change within 50 years. No, they've got to make shit look like it fits, so the government can pretend they're actually doing the friggin' job.
Well, when I start working with people on their diets and things like that, and they start seeing how much sodium that they're taking in, and they just, you know, they may be eating something that's low calorie or something like that, but it's packed with like 900 milligrams of sodium. And I'm just like, I'm like, well, that, you know, you wonder why you have high blood pressure. You wonder why, you know, it's like, this is stuff and it's easily fixed, you know, but like you were saying about the gym as a personal trainer, that's my biggest obstacle too, is I'm trying to sell someone on paying me to make them work, you know, and that's it. And it's like you said, it's got to come from within. If they come to me and they truly want to do it, well, then I can explain and sell them on how, what I would do to help them attain their goal. But I've nothing I can say that's going to make them make that kind of a commitment and stick to it. They have to have found their way to that on their own. You know, I might be able to,
No, I'm sorry.
I might be able to nudge them a little. Like if they're right on the edge, maybe I can nudge them a little closer to it. But other than that, I mean, it's something that really needs to come from within. Like I feel like when I finally decided to start trying doing bodybuilding, I mean, that had to come from me finally deciding I'm going to do it. And then I was saying at the time, I'm like, I'm doing one show. That's it. It's just to prove to myself I can do it. And then it was like the second I got off the stage, I was like, I'm doing this again.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because I was like, because then I was like, all right, I know I can do it. Now let's see if I can do it better than the last time.
Yeah.
And that's what every show became about. It was like, let's see the pictures from this show versus the last show. You know, like where did I improve? What, you know, that was always what I judged myself on. And then if you came home with trophies, then great. Otherwise, it was all about just I did it and I did better than last time. So, but that's got to come from within.
You mentioned something about the people. You could say that most people fail, but then again, you really can't measure that, because you could also ask most people what their goal is, even in a general sense. Approach somebody and, I don't know, maybe not man in the street. That might be like, I don't know, somebody you'll insult them, they don't know you, but what is your goal? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm just here to buy bread. Well, that's not what I mean. You know, what's your vision,
Right.
your focus? And if you don't have that, then of course you can't fail. And some people, they won't choose, because when you choose, you know, to decide is very hard for folks to pull the lever. But when you don't do that, there's no
guilt if you don't accomplish it.
well, there's nothing to follow as far as there's no metrics to follow as far as whether you're failing or succeeding, and then you're safe.
Right.
Then those are the people who whine the most. And you know something about public whining? When you do it, nobody wants to help you.
Right. Yes. Trust me, John and I know a few people who are very guilty of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree. So you, I want to move on a little bit and get into, you did just a little about, you know, your chiropractic time. It was because you were an excellent chiropractor for a very long time, and not only just that. I mean, your just overall knowledge of health and wellness has always been very impressive to me. I think one of the last times I saw you, you had mentioned that because you're in Connecticut, you had more than a couple WWE guys come through your office at some point, didn't
Well,
you? You worked on them?
No, you know what it was? The WBF, World Bodybuilding Federation.
Oh, okay.
Vince McMahon in 1990, 91. First,
That's
when I came home from chiropractic school in 1990, I had a real bad accident on the highway. I was on crutches for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
So I had a neurological condition. It was terrible. I went to Mayo Clinic. They were going to amputate my leg. It was a long story, but I was on hiatus as far as opening my practice. I didn't open a practice, so I've never worked for anyone. I never worked for a clinic. I had to learn on my own, which wasn't the smartest thing, but it worked out okay. And I opened my practice on my own in '95. But in the interim, Gold's Gym, which is now Powerhouse in New Haven here, kind of a famous mecca out here in Connecticut, was the home of the WBF, World Bodybuilding Federation. As you know, McMahon is here.
That was McMahon's. That's what it was. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, McMahon is a big mofo back then.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I'm working out in there one day, and he comes up and he goes, "Oh, you're Michael Dusa, the chiropractor." I go, "Yes." And he goes, "How would you like to be the chiropractor for the bodybuilders?" Because McMahon stole 12 of the top bodybuilders from Weider, because Weider wasn't paying them very well. He was giving guys like $250,000.
Wow.
Side story. He ended up hiring Lou Ferrigno, who came over, and that was a big get from Weider. And You paid him $750,000, and the league folded before Ferrigno even had to go on stage, and Ferrigno kept the money.
Got to keep all the money, yeah.
So I probably would too. You know,
yeah.
But these guys, they were all down there, and I worked on a lot of them. And to this day, Troy Zuccolato's a friend, and a couple of the other guys. I've had my own podcast, and I've done almost 100 interviews with all the top guys, some Hollywood people too. And one of the young guys was saying, "Well, how do you do this?" And I know, but I kind of go to them. I go, well, "What do you mean?" Like a little segue. If somebody's ever messing with you in a passive aggressive way,
yeah,
just turn it around on them and say, "What do you mean by that?" And they'll shut the fuck up and they won't bother you anymore.
Yeah.
I like that.
You're gonna end up kind of alone on this planet if you live with integrity.
Yeah.
Most don't, and you're gonna bring that out. They don't want to be around it, and it's okay. You're not lonely, just alone. But McMahon, you know, he tried to make it into something it wasn't. He tried to inject more entertainment into it. Gave all the guys names and listen. He had the show at Atlantic City, the casino there. Trump was there, and Troy Zuccollato, who's very successful, probably the third most successful bodybuilder after Arnold, and I'd say he's ahead of. But he's one of the, as far as all the businesses he owns. So he didn't just stay with bodybuilding, lifting weights. And when he was there in the WBF and was getting ready to go on stage, Trump was standing right there next to him. And Trump just looked at me and goes, "Well, I guess I chose the right path." And he was kind of half joking with me, you know, real estate. There's no money in bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Even though for what those guys were doing, it could have been. But what that did do for Weider, though, made Weider give the guys better contracts over in the IFBB. And of course, they had to pay fines to get back in. But for me, it was cool and it was fun because I was still pretty young at the time, and these guys, I knew them all from the magazines, and
Sure.
I've done a lot of work with Robbie Robinson. I went to his bodybuilding camp when I was 15, and then I brought him out here when I was in my 30s for the shows I was running, which I thought was pretty cool. But again, I really tried. I knew one of the blessings was I was never going to be a great bodybuilder, so I had to be able to bridge that gap with other things through that, all the people and connections, and to this day, I do that. So if you only have that, and you're really good at it, and you could even be the best, it's not a vehicle to provide, for the most part, for you and your family, unless you know how to hustle, you know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, for me in pro wrestling, one of the things I liked about it is that you can be a part of it. And like, I was never the best in-ring wrestler. I was good on the mic. I was good at working with the crowd. I was good at entertaining. But you know, outside of that, you know, I got to call commentary. I got to do all sorts of things to help promote the events and make them happen, put them together, and, you know, pick up talent and stuff like that. And it's like just being part of it. You know, it's you know, you don't have to be the star of the show necessarily to be able to be in that environment around, you know, your people, you know, and it's the same with bodybuilding. And
you plugged yourself into something you had a profound interest in, and you did well at it in many aspects of it. Most people can't or won't. So that's your path. And going back to that type of thing, I was an artist for a long time. I still do. I create all the stuff for a company. But one of my good friends I used to bounce with, Ron Garney, was an artist way back in the 80s, and he used to doodle on napkins at the bar we'd work at. And the gorilla bouncers, who were probably all dead or in jail now, they would tell him, "Get a job, never mind doodling." Well, he was a top artist for Marvel for many years. He did all the top heroes. He's very in the world of Comic-Con. He's very famous. You know, outside of that, nobody knows him. You know, they a line around the street. And he's working now with Keanu Reeves, hangs out with Keanu Reeves. I was over his house one day, and Keanu Reeves did a FaceTime with him or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, you start working with these folks, they're just like you, but he's at that level because he's stuck with it. I mean, he looked at some of my stuff. He goes, "Yeah, Mike, you know, if you stuck with it, you could have done it." I don't know if that's true, but I didn't. He did. And I like to see, if you can develop this, anybody who's listening, and rid yourself of hubris or envy of others or wishing them to go asunder because they're doing better than you apparently. Look at it like this. They're proving that the environment is fertile ground for you to plant yourself in there and do well like they're doing, because they're doing well. So the system will allow you to do that if you plug yourself in correctly. Whereas watch the news tonight, they're going to tell you gloom and doom, what's
Yeah.
going to happen, just to scare you. But a guy like Ron, he went to the top and beyond. And not, he designs, he does a lot of wardrobe designs for movies, worked with Will Smith. He's really done really, really well. And I remember when we were just working in a bar and he was doodling on napkins, So you going into wrestling, you weren't good. Well, even in the comic world, there's inkers, there's letterers, there's
Sure. Yeah. There's a
writers,
whole
penciler. So who are you going to be,
right. And it takes a village to put any sort of production like that together. But you can, it's cool when you start learning all of the different parts and you can kind of jump in and out of different roles and be like a utility guy who can kind of help out and do things in other ways. Before we move on though, I did want to take a moment to share with everybody that I am one of probably a few people who still have the official
That's what I wanted to see.
Michael J.
I've got a
Dusa
bunch of it.
bobblehead right
still have
here.
that?
Yeah, no, it's up in my place, so I wanted to make sure I had it. So there it is. It's a rare item.
You can kind of tell that's me. I think the hair is a little short.
I think it's going for a few grand on eBay right
Oh,
now.
is it?
So yeah.
I found one. I found one in a local Goodwill on a shelf.
Oh really? Oh, that's crazy.
At least there's no voodoo pins in yours.
Yeah.
Really, that's an example of marketing, and anything that you do, like Arnold said this, as big of a douchebag as he is the best at what he's done. I admire him for his business acumen and pushing forward and all that. Screwing his mate on his wife's bed for 14 years. That's kind of out for me. But he said it's not who you are, it's who people think you are. Now, is there integrity to that? I don't know, but I can tell you right now, I can be the best chiropractor in an office somewhere in the world, but if people don't know I'm there, then
doesn't do you any good.
They're littered with millions of people who are really good. No one knows. So you've got to get people, number one, to open your mail. Well, most people open their mail over the trash can when things weren't so electronic.
Right.
So you got to get them to open it. You got to get them to observe. You got to get them to read it and digest it and want it and come to you. So it's this chain that you have to go through, even with the marketing we do online now. Well, it's not easy. Of course, it's not easy. And if you tell young people, especially, I taught at the university, I've told them life is horrific. It's harsh. It's brutal. And some of them are like very crestfallen. This is terrible. Why are you telling us this? Because don't believe all the shit you see on Facebook, the sunshine and rainbows stuff. If you understand that it's not happiness that you're chasing, if you're happy all the time, every day, you got to be snorting meth or something in one of those guys.
Right. And then even that's not going to last. Yeah.
Right. You want to find something that gives you contentment. You're on the right track. You're in the proper arena. And then you cultivate that ability to be receptive to happy events when they come. But any happy event doesn't last, it's going to wear off. Then you get back to the grind, So all of that ties in, the marketing, expectations of people. What do they want from you?
And I'm a big believer in the under promise over deliver as I don't think I under promise, but I think I try to go above their expectations. The best bosses I've worked for were the jobs I worked the hardest at, because I was treated with appreciation and respect. So I worked longer hours. I was there on days off because I felt I was appreciated. And with me and people I work with and my friends and just life in general, I try to give more than I take if I can help it, and then pay it forward when people do right by me. I try to take care of those who take care of me. And
you're spot on. Like I alluded to Evan Centopani earlier, and some people are like, Dusa, why do you need a trainer? You train because you know what, the objectivity I get from that, and I don't I'm always learning.
Yeah.
If your ego is too developed, I'll get back to what you were just saying in a second. And I've been, you know, everything I profess. I mean, I wrote a book with all these rules, and I proper all this stuff online on the sites. Some people say this guy's a know-it-all. I go, almost everything that I drop is based upon me learning it from screwing up or making a mistake, and I'm only trying to disseminate. That's all I. And believe me, right now, this new company, new business, new industry, I'm in total learning mode. I don't care if you're like a guy pushing a cart, rag picker. You might know something when you're talking to people. I do more listening now, even though we're doing a lot of talking, and I had to work at that. And because always assume a person in front of you might know something that you don't. And
Sure.
a lot. I wake up, man, scared every day. I'm like, I don't know enough, and you have to learn what works, what people want. Going back to Evan, why are you hiring him? You know, I go because you know what? I watch the guy and I watch him train people, and I see what he's doing, and I like what I see. I can use some of that. I'll just keep it real basic. And he doesn't need the money. I mean, he's got to earn money, but it's not like he has to just take whatever. He wants people who are serious, so they don't waste his time.
Right.
You know, and that I like. So it's more quality that way. And
Well, as a trainer, I mean, you also want to draw the satisfaction of knowing that you're helping this person progress
yeah,
and attain their goal. It's not rewarding at all for you if they're just going through the motions and nothing's happening. I mean, if you're that kind of person, you're taking advantage of them and you're shortchanging yourself the experience of being able to do something to help somebody.
so Tommy, you're not one of those trainers that's looking at your phone while the person's doing reps.
No, no, I'm standing next to them, making sure their form is right, there to spot them if they need it,
Good.
telling them, you know, that was a good rep, come down a little lower on that, closer to the chest, whatever, you know, like that. But that's how I was taught, though. I mean, you knew my trainer, Larry Weiss,
Oh yeah, I was
and
going to mention Larry. My God.
yeah, and he honestly, I mean, everything that I know in the gym, it was because Larry was at Jaeger's after school. He would have already worked out, and then I would get there. He'd spend probably an hour and a half with me, just standing there with me, showing me how to do things, starting with 5 pound weights, not allowed to move up until I had perfect form on each weight and things like that, showing me the right way to spot people. I mean, he taught me all of that stuff. And it's like, so when I'm working out, even just by myself, I still hear him in my head, keep your elbows in, don't break 90 on this one, or, you know, whatever the case. And then, so I don't know how else to do it. So when I'm training other people, I'm the same way. Like I am all over them.
Good.
And no, the phone is somewhere else. So, but
I'll tell you one little illegal thing here. A patient who really seemed to like me. He brought over from Europe a little device. It looks like this. It looks like a cell phone.
yeah.
But it's not. And when I was teaching, I won't say where I was teaching at the time. I won't be back there. But the kids were not listening. They're falling asleep, looking out the window, and I'm thinking, you know what? I had my practice at the time, and I'm certainly not making money going to the school, but it's you do it for different reasons. But
Right.
I went to the school and I said, you know, what do I do about these kids who are, can I throw them out of class? And the provost, one of the top guys in the school, he says, you know, Michael, they pay 60,000 a year to come here, so no. So that told me it's not about education or it's just about money. And
It's about making money. Yeah.
so I brought my device that was given to me by my patient, and I put it under the lectern thing you stand at, and I pushed the button because it's a cell phone jammer.
Oh yeah.
My little
That's cool.
Batman belt, you know, and the phones. Again, it's illegal as a I don't know what happened. It's like it's like a radar detector or whatever. But from that point on, phones didn't work in that area of the building when I was there.
Oh really?
I love that. That's cool.
These little rich kids from Long Island. I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, let's go, man.
All right, everybody. Well, we're having a really nice conversation here with Dr. Dusa, and we are going to actually take a break and bring you the second half of this conversation on the next episode of the Johngy or Else podcast. So stay tuned for the second part of our talk with Dr. Michael J. Dusa. As always, for the Johngy or Else podcast, I have been who else Tommy Else, and with me as always, the man on the beat from johngysbeat.com, Mr. John Robleski.
Stay tuned for part 2.